Now I want to differentiate mediation from moderation. So we spent so much time before talking about moderation and how to interpret moderators. And now what I want to do is I want to reintroduce moderators in the same path diagram that I'm showing you what a mediator is so that you can see what we've been talking about in terms of moderation and how mediation really does differ. So moderators influence the effect between a primary predictor and an outcome. But moderators also have direct effects. And because they have direct effects, that's why we assess a moderator as a main effect, but also as an interaction. And you'll see here that the moderator is really a combination of both the moderator and X, because both of these combined then turn into a prediction of Y. So you have your main effect right here, then that's this arrow. And let's see if I can. So it's this arrow right here. And this arrow pointing from the moderator, that's the subscript O. So it's MO for moderator, as opposed to ME for mediator. The moderator has both a direct effect and an interaction effect with X. So here what we have is, and this is just a shorthand way of showing it. It's not necessarily universally acceptable, but it has good heuristic value. So the moderator influences or affects the relationship between X and Y. Now notice that a mediator does not directly affect the influence between X and Y, but rather the mediator is the go-between. It is the causal relationship almost magnified so that we understand what the relationship is between X and Y. Now you'll notice that both the mediator and the moderator have direct effects on Y. And that's what makes mediation and moderation somewhat difficult, because both mediators and moderators are relevant variables for predicting Y. But what makes them slightly different is that a mediator has a relationship between X and the mediator, whereas a moderator, what we're saying is that the predictor of X and the moderator, another predictor, are not necessarily correlated causally. So in this case, there's the necessary causal relationship between X and the mediator, but for a moderator, there is no necessary causal relationship, and that what we can have, as we've discussed before, is we can have a correlation, and that's what this curve line is, that there is a correlation between our X and our moderator, and we've seen this when we have multiclinearity. When you have a moderator that's collinear or strongly correlated with X, we may have a process that is akin to mediation, but it might just be multiclinearity. And we've talked about how to deal with that in the past. But this is a situation, this meaning the mediator, is a situation that is not just correlated, but that there is a temporal relationship where X occurs before the mediator and the mediator occurs before Y. In contrast, a moderator does not necessarily have that temporal relationship. And so therefore, what we would do is we wouldn't test this, because these may be two co-occurring variables. Co-occurring meaning that they take place roughly at the same time, and so therefore they are not causally contingent upon one another. They may be correlated, just as we have talked about with multiclinearity, but there's not a causal relationship where X precedes the variable, mediator or moderator. In a mediator, it must precede, because this is a causal arrow. Here, X and the moderator are just correlated, so therefore they can be confounded in some way. There may be response tendencies. They may actually share common construct variance, but the relationship is not one that is temporally bound. So a mediator or mediation process is a temporal causal pathway. A moderator relationship is not temporally bound. Mediators sit causally between X and Y, the antecedent and the consequence. A moderator need not be so. And so therefore, the difference between mediation and moderation, they both share direct effects with the consequence, or Y, but they do not share this same causal structure right at the beginning between the antecedent X and the secondary variable. Mediators as a secondary variable have come about as a direct result of X. Moderators may come about for any variety of reasons. They may be confounded or correlated or collinear with X, but they do not come about because of X. So that's how we disentangle or differentiate mediation and moderation. This is a very clean distinction that I'm making between mediation and moderation. Mediation and moderation can occur simultaneously, where you have the same variable that is both a mediator and a moderator. So therefore, the mediation process takes place from X to the mediator, and then that mediating moderator can then have a direct influence, an influence that isn't direct on Y, but rather it influences the relationship between X and Y. So therefore, you have this mediator, which is also / a moderator. And so it is both a mediator, it sits between the pathway, but it also moderates the effect between X and Y. That's where when we have these complex relationships, things get pretty dicey and tests become a little bit less clear, and not to mention the fact that our causal inferences become less clear. The next video I'm going to talk about testing mediation. Many of you already know how to test this, but I'm going to walk through the entire process. So stay tuned for that next video.